Alright, just gonna make a little video here for my own memory and whoever else wants to know how to do this here. It's just this sweet little CSS animation for rotating color around the border. It's not really rotating around the border, it's all done with pseudo elements, but you don't need any JavaScript, it's just pure CSS. So I'll go through it as quick as I can here and just show you how to make it. It's pretty simple. Alright, we just got Visual Studio Code opened up here, and our HTML for now. I mean, you could just do this to any div element or really any section. So we're just going to put a basic div in here for now, and that's pretty much all we need there. So now we're going to add some basic styling to just our div itself. So select just a div and give it height of about 400 pixels for now. You can really do whatever you want here, but it's keeping it a square, so we're doing 400 by 400. We're going to give it a little box shadow. 20 pixels all the way around should be good, and then we'll make sure it stays black. And then we're going to position this, so we want to position it absolute. You don't have to, but you want to give it some kind of position because the inner elements need to stay positioned within the div. So we don't want that to be on the sides of the pages. We want it to be within the edges of our div. So we give it I'm going to give it an absolute position because in my example here, it's just centered in the page, and that's done with an absolute position. And then I'll add the top and the translate afterwards, but don't need that now. And I'm just going to put this overflow hidden here. That's the rule I use to kind of hide the div behind it, but I'll comment that out for now because I want you to see the other pseudo element. And I'm just going to give this little border radius, just a small 10 pixel value here. And then we're going to start off with our pseudo element here. So we're going to say div before, right? And we're just going to give this content, say nothing, because we don't want this one to contain any actual content like that. And then this is probably the ugliest part of the code, longest part to kind of figure out and make, but you want to give this a background. And then we're going to do a conic gradient here. And within our parentheses, what we want to do in order to get this nice separation between our colors, you want to do each color one after the other, and then you want to declare the degrees in which you want it to span. So typically you want to choose an even amount of colors, and then divide that by 360. And then add that number to each one of these degrees so that you make even spaces all the way around the div. So I'll just write them out here. So we're starting with red, and you always want your first one is going to be 0 degrees, and you add your comma, and you call the color again, and then in my case I'm going up to 51 degrees, right? And then you're going to do your next color. In my case it's orange. We're going to start off back at our 51 degrees because we want this to start right where our red ends. And then we're going to add our number to it. So in my case, I go up to 102 degrees. And then next color, sorry, we got to declare that orange. It's 102 degrees. We got our orange. Our next one is yellow. We're going to be 102 degrees here. And then we're going to say yellow again, 153 degrees in my case. And you're just going to want to repeat this over and over again until you get all your colors mapped out with their degrees all the way up to 360. So I'll just speed things up a little bit here and do the rest of my colors. And then when we get back to the end, we just want to redeclare our red. I'm going to say 357, and then we'll cap it off at our 360. Right, and that's that. Right, so now we got to give this position, and we're going to want to say absolute again. This one's going to stay within our element here. And then we probably want to give it, well, we gotta give it a height and a width so we can see it, and this has to be, you know, probably 200 or so pixels bigger than to get to the outside edges of the square. So we're gonna make this 600 pixels with our height, and the same thing with our width. And now you don't need to make this a circle, but I like to just make it a circle. So we'll do border radius again, and this time we're going to do 50% so that we get our circle. And let's just preview this quick here. So we'll come into our file, open that up. You can see we got our circle. It's above our square, but this, so you can see how it's all the colors fanned out in a circle, all nice and even around that 360 degrees. That's exactly what we're looking for. Alright, so now we want to put this into the middle of our div element here, and a good way to do that when you position absolute is to give it a top of 50%. We're going to do left 50% as well. And then we're going to translate this. We're going to say our x and our y minus 50% and minus 50%. I love that translate. You don't need to put transform, you could just say translate. Save this, open our file back up here, refresh. Now you can see we're pushed over to the center. And now, just to get it a little bit more visible, I'm going to copy and paste that right there, back up to our div here so that we get the same effect on that. We'll refresh it, and boom, now we're in the center. Right, so you can't see that div, it's perfectly centered behind there, but that's exactly what we want. Okay, so now we're going to do our next pseudo element. We're going to do div after, and on this one we are going to put our content that we want to see visibly in here. So in this case I had hello simply, so we'll put that in our content, and then here we'll just put hello, and we want to kind of do the same position here with absolute. Do position absolute, and then we're going to want to center this one as well, so we'll just copy and paste this again down here. And then to get that content here into the center of our div, we're just going to want to do, we're going to want to display this to grid, and then we can use the place items, and then we can put that to center, and that will put everything in the middle of that div. And then we want to give this one a height that's just a little bit smaller. This is where you can kind of mess with the thickness of your border by giving this one, you know, smaller pixel value. In this case I'm just going to do 20 pixels, so we'll do 370. I'm going to say height, sorry, 380 pixels, and then we'll do the same thing with our width, say 380, so that's 20 pixels smaller than the other one. And then we're going to want to give this a background color so that it kind of stands ahead. I'll just say white for this, wheat, that's fine. And we want to give this border radius as well to match up to our upper div, 10 pixels it was. And you can kind of mess with the font here of this hello. If you want to change the font, you can give it a couple selectors. Then, you know, just by selecting the font and the color and all that stuff, you will change that content. So just give it some letter spacing, 10 pixels I guess, and we'll just give it a font family just so it looks kind of cool, better, that looks good, and we'll make it a little bit bigger here, let's say 20 pixels. Alright, save that, come back to our Explorer, refresh this one. So now there's our inner circle, our inner square, right, visible. Now we want to go back and overflow that. We'll hide that overflow, so we'll just uncomment this, save it, and then we'll come back in here, refresh. Now you can see it's pushed out to our border. Beautiful, that's just what we want. So now we want to animate this, and that's just done with a couple little animations, or just one animation in this case. We're just going to rotate it. So I'll do my keyframes to get that, to create that animation. So we'll do keyframes, and then we're just going to call this rotate. That's what we're doing here, and then we're just going to want to say 100%. So push it to the end. We're going to just say rotate simply, and then 360 degrees. Okay, that's all we need for our animation. And then above that, we're going to say, so we want to hover over it. In this case, we could just add this animation straight to our before, because this is what we want to animate here. Is our before element that's got our colors. That's what we want spinning around. So if I just were to add an animation line in this, it would just continuously go, or do whatever you want it to, but I want it to be on hover, so I'm going to do div hover, and then we're going to do before, just like that, and then we're going to give this our animation. I love Visual Studio Code, it gives you all this stuff even though we don't really need that. It's great for that kind of thing. So we're just going to call our animation. We're going to say about 7 seconds or so. You can do whatever you want here. We want it to go infinitely, and then we want this to be linear, so it's nice and even. It's not going to speed in, or go quick and then slow. It's going to just be a nice even rotation. So that's exactly what we want there, and that's all we got to add for that. And then our we want to make it in this one here, I just gave that little animation, so when it's clicked it moves up and down. So that's just with an active, so we're just doing div, and we're going to say active pseudo selector, and we're going to say transform translate, and we're going to give this 4 pixels, 4 pixels. Save that. Come back in here, refresh. Now every time I click it, it goes up and down. So that's perfect. So you see how this, when I put my mouse on and take it off, it jumps back to the original. Like if we're watching the red here, it comes down, then we take it off and it goes back. We don't want that. We want it to stop wherever we take our mouse off. So for that, all we have to do is add our animation into our 4 here. So we're going to add the same line here. Okay. So we're giving it the same property, and then after that we're going to want to say animation play state right here, and then we're just going to say paused. So that's going to run this animation paused wherever it stops doing this hover feature here. So come back, refresh, and now see it stops right where we want it to. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all it is, just a simple little rotate. You gotta, for the hover option, if you wanted it to hover. So if I didn't want it to hover, I would just not add this. We would not add this. And we save it, come back in here, refresh. Now it's just going to be rotating all the time, no matter what we do. Which is definitely, cool if that's what you're looking for, but that's how you would do that. And that is it. I hope that helped you out. Pretty simple.